Good morning, guys. I hope you are doing well today. I am out here in the garden because I thought this would be a good day, especially since the rains have been coming and going, to talk to you about turning your garden, especially if your garden is more on the smaller side, into not just a flower garden, but an edible garden with some herbs and vegetables mixed in with your flowers. That's what I have done, and I talked about that last season, and I'll give you a little bit of an example throughout my garden of what I've done. We're going to walk and talk, and I'll show you how to incorporate herbs in with your flowers, and how I also this year am going to be incorporating vegetables, specifically that longevity spinach that you saw me potting up to root that I ordered off of Etsy a couple of videos or so ago. But yeah, it is so easy to make sure that your garden has food in it and not just flowers. You can do a mixture. So you don't have to have just that corner of the garden or little section that is specifically a vegetable garden. You can actually grow some food and your herbs within your flower beds. And some of them have some of the prettiest flowers anyway, so they will blend right in. So let's walk the garden and let me show you how I've incorporated food and herbs into my garden. All right, guys, I am going to start here at the very beginning. This section here used to be a raised bed. When we moved in, it was a raised bed of herbs. It had rosemary, oregano, things like that. And I actually am still using some of those herbs. They're just in other places in the garden. And I moved out the wood rail. Well, I guess they are called railroad ties, the wood railroad ties that made up the bed. It was like 3 layers high. So it was a pretty, good little height. And, but it rotted. And in this humidity and heat, wood rots pretty fast, which is why it's surprising to me that there's so many wooden fences. But I have since learned that vinyl doesn't always do so well here either. So I guess there's not really a win in that case. But anyway, as we start on this bed that I have turned into a walkway and planting bed, you will see that I have onions. 1, 2, 3. And these are from the onions that were here when we moved in. And these were cut back. And you can see that they're really growing. And this one was just recently cut back and transplanted, just literally this week. And it already has a bloom on it. And it has grown up so tall so quickly. But these are more like chives. So these are, of course, edible. So there's an edible here in this walkway that will be surrounded by flowers. We're actually going to be transplanting the salvia that is back there. There's 2 salvia back there. We're going to transplant those and put those here in this section. But as we continue to walk this bed, there's edibles here. There's garlic. There is a society garlic right here, right there, and right there, mixed in with iris and snapdragons. So as you can see, there's more edibles there. And then as we come out of this walkway, all right, we have to find Tika before we continue on. So let's see where she is. Tika. Yes, you know you're not supposed to be over there. I cleaned up back here some. You can see that I've got all the leaves up into these beds here, or as many of the leaves as I could. And we'll just compost over them. We'll use them to help enrich the soil. So anyway, let's get back to looking at our garden as far as having herbs and everything. And I'm carrying Miss Tika with me. There she is. So before we head in the other direction. So we just came from the walkway bed, which has a combination of some edibles. We've got onion and we've got garlic there mixed in with flowers. You come to the end of this walkway and it opens up into this back long border, and right away there's oregano, and this oregano was divided and put around this rock, and it is oregano that was here when we moved in, and it has been divided and placed, as you can see here, and you'll see as we get a little further down there, there's more oregano. So we use our oregano to cook with. And I try to avoid using chemicals in the garden because I just, want to keep it as healthy as possible. There's yarrow, which, is good for medicinal uses right here. So that's a medicinal herb mixed in among a plumbago, a purple fountain grass, and a lantana, along with roses behind it. So you have some medicinal, uses for oregano, yarrow, things like that, as well as their beauty, the flowers, because these oreganos grow white flowers, which are very pretty. And then, of course, they're edible. Now, as we come along here, I am going to be doing some transplanting. I'm going to step back. So this shrub here and that shrub there are going to be moved to the back there, and they're going to be the shrubs that sit in between the two tall evergreens that I'm going to have in those sections. If you saw the video where I gave you ideas of my plans for back there, I'm going to move those back there. I think those pretty yellow flowers mixed in with the whites will be beautiful. And speaking of those white flowers, they just pop so much back there. I love that. So anyway, so once I move those, every year we plant basil, African basil specifically, that I really like. I do like sweet basil as well, but African basil gets very big, and I think they will be perfect here, and we use quite a bit of it. You really only need one African basil plant. So I probably will do one African basil and one sweet basil, but they're going to be there. And then, of course, there's a hibiscus here, or my idea is to do 3 hibiscus to replace these shrubs that I want to transplant with 2 more hibiscus. So there's a row of hibiscus along the front here, and a lot of people use hibiscus for hibiscus tea and things like that. So, your hibiscus can be edible as well. And if you kind of see here, that is a salvia that's coming back up here and here. So I'm thinking of moving those, and I thought they would look good here along the walkway, probably here in this front section, like one there, one here, or have both of them lined up together here to kind of start the walkway out. I would love to try out Proven Winners rock and blue suede shoes, and maybe I'll do that this year, but for right now I have these, so we'll get those transplanted. But one thing I could do also is when these are gone and I have the hibiscus in those places, right where the salvias are is where I could put the basils. The other option is this shrub here could come out, and I could put basil right here. I tend to kind of lean the herbs more this way because they get very well watered over here in this I call my little kitchen garden, because everything seems to do good in these sections over here. But yes, this isn't a place where I could put like the African basil, and I could get a couple other herbs to go here in between the hibiscus. But as we come around this section, there's a lot more herbs here. I did a video, well, I don't remember if it's in video. I think it is, where I pruned this. This is the Vicks plant, and you can kind of see it's got growth coming back right there. If it doesn't make it, I'll replace it. But that is the Vicks plant, which is what Vicks Vapor Rub is made from. It is obviously an herbal treatment to help with congestion and things like that. There was a Mexican tarragon here, which is also starting to grow back. I cut it down. You can kind of see that there, which obviously tarragon is an herb that you can use, and it grew quite big, so it occupied this whole space here. So you've got something for an herbal remedy. You've got Mexican tarragon, and then there's something coming back here, and I don't even remember what that is. I think that's just a flower that I had there, perennial of some type. But of course, here's rosemary. Here's oregano. This is one of the 2 oreganos that was here. And this one is an herb too, and I can't even remember what this is. But as you see, it has the look of, the leaves look like ferns. I have to find the tag. I can't remember what that one is. But yes, this is one of the oreganos that was here when I moved in. And I typically just kind of trim it up and dry what I trim up from it, and we use it to cook with. So we've got quite a few herbs from the garden in the house. But as you can see, I've got herbs out here that are medicinal and culinary. And then there's more space to add herbs. And the seeds that I'm growing, I have clary sage, bee balm, and another herb, which I can't remember, which will all go out here. They'll have pretty flowers and leaves and things like that. In addition, there are things like Rebecca, which is coming up there. This is an echinacea. Right here, you can see the little remains of last year's. Back there is a salvia. So you can kind of see there was also another plant that was back here as well. We also had, there's the remnants of a zinnia back there. And there were some plants back here as well. So as you can see, there's a mixture of perennials along with herbs that were in here and are still in here. So the bed is pretty, has color, but it also has things that you can cook with and things that you can treat, ailments with as well. And kind of stuck in here are strawberries, and I actually had a strawberry here, and I was going to come out and pick it, and it disappeared. Something got to it before I could. But here is another hibiscus. And so, of course, we know the vegetable garden. We have our lettuce and mustards and collards and turnips that are still growing right now. We've had tomatoes, habaneros, things like that, okra, corn, your various things. We have blueberry bushes in here. So you can have your corner vegetable garden, but you can also stick foods and herbs within your flower beds, like here and here. And the other place that I plan on sticking some foods, that longevity spinach, will be back here. In my plan that I showed you guys in that video of what I want to do for the courtyard garden, there's going to be white sun patiens and dusty millers. I've got, of course, some white sun patiens back there. I could not find seeds for those, so those had to be purchased. But the other things that I have, I'm growing my dusty millers and things like that. But if you remember, I'll try to see if I can find a clip to stick up of what my idea was back here. But I want evergreen, tall evergreen, but nothing that is really, really too tall or wide. So I'm looking at like this, is it called skyrocket juniper, that gets only about 2 feet wide or so, and about 6 to 8 feet tall. And so there would be 2, and in between them would be a shrub that blooms, and that's what I am thinking I will let those be the blooming shrub in between. And then the outer edge outlined, I was going to do Mexican heather, but I don't want something I'm going to have to be replacing every year. And these Mexican heather I don't know if they're going to come back, but they look gone from the frost. So I may have to break down and take everyone's suggestion and do boxwoods. But yeah, we're going to have the two evergreens, a blooming shrub in the middle. And then I'm going to have the longevity spinach throughout here. Same with this side. The two evergreens, the blooming shrub, longevity spinach, along with some Dusty Miller and some white flowers mixed in. Maybe combination of the sun patience, and I'm growing some white sun-drop torinias with little touches of yellow. Excuse me, guys, with little touches of yellow in it. So that will add some pops of yellow that will also blend in well with the beautiful yellow flowers that those shrubs produce. And I think, like I said, if I go with boxwoods, I'll have to do that a few at a time because they can be quite a bit expensive. But that is how you can have foods back here, like spinach and lettuce. And the reason I'm going back here where it's more shaded is because it was recommended to me that being here where the humidity and heat is so much, it might be better, since I have had such a difficult time growing spinach, to move it somewhere where there's just a little more shade, not full shade, but where it can get a little more shade and not be in full direct sun and heat like that vegetable garden is. So that is why I plan on doing that here. I can also try out some lettuce. So maybe I'll try like the spinach on this side, and I have some seeds for butter crunch lettuce. Maybe I can mix in some butter crunch lettuce and, some Dusty Millers along with some of the white torinias over here as well. And of course, these walls, as you know, we have to get new siding for the house and the garage. But I was going to do two shrubs, same evergreens with the blooming shrub in the middle, and plants along the front, and the outer edge would be whatever we chose, possibly the boxwoods. Same for here. And of course a window on the wall because I want to use the back part of the garage for working with seeds and things like that. And same here, window here with the tall evergreens flanking it, a blooming shrub in the middle of them, and that kind of sits below the window. And then maybe I could do some lettuce, Dusty Miller, and some white torinias there as well. Maybe a couple of sun patience stuck in. So that is how you can add vegetables, herbs in with your flowers. And the same thing could be done here. It could be some vegetables, it could be some herbs, or it could just be all perennials around, like salvias or something like that, with annuals on the outer part, so that you can kind of change the color and look each year. But that is what I have done in my garden out here, and that's what I want to carry back to this courtyard garden, because I really want to grow as much of our food as I can in the space that I have. And, you'll never be in a position where you don't go to the store for something. But if we could cover as many things as possible, like our herbs, we haven't bought herbs in a while because we literally use everything that's out here and we dry it. So even when the season is cooler like it is now, I can literally just use what we've dried and stored in the house. Whatever excess we have, I put in a Ziploc bag and put in the freezer to preserve it. But yeah, guys, that is how you can add food into your garden. And we cannot forget our fruit trees, like the Meyer lemon right here. We have, as we come back to the bedroom garden, we have this orange tree right here. And then, of course, and you guys might notice I have my hummingbird feeders out. I know they say that if you get your feeders out early in the season when they're starting to migrate back, north, if they discover there's food where you are, they'll stay for the whole season. So I've got my hummingbird feeders out now because I've had birds, more and more birds coming and the birds chirping in the morning. And I put fresh food and cleaned out this feeder over here right in front of us. And literally the next morning when I came out, birds were already eating from it. So, my goal is to try to get them here and keep them here for the whole season. But anyway, we have this orange tree here. And you can, always put some food around the base of the orange tree. We've got perennials here. I don't really grow any herbs or anything back here because I really wanted this to be kind of more of a retreat garden. But this is a Barbados cherry, which we're not sure that it made it. It's looking pretty deceased, so we'll see. But, even though this is more of a formal private secret garden, it still has a couple of food items in here in the way of fruit trees. So this garden has definitely incorporated, our foods, some medicinal herbs, as well as the vegetable garden, there, but as well as perennials and beautiful flowers. And this is a lime tree. This is a Mexican lime. And we'll see. It looked like this last year after the frost, but came back pretty good. So we'll see how this one does. But yeah, guys, that is how you have a garden with food and beautiful florals as well. And it is so easy to do. In your design, in places where you were thinking of putting a perennial or something like that, consider adding, instead of that perennial, consider like if you wanted to do some salvias or some echinacea, which echinacea is a medicinal type of flower as well. So it doesn't just serve the purpose of flowers. It can help, calm you, help with sleep, things like that. So echinacea is also edible. I mean, not edible, but you can make teas with it and stuff like that. But, you can add an echinacea for your perennial. You can add an edible herb, which is not necessarily a perennial, but it will replace, in color that perennial, like the basil, for example, that I talked about putting back there that I do every year somewhere in the garden. So that is how this garden has had a combination of herbs and flowers. All right, guys. Well, I hope you found that information helpful and it gives you an idea of how you can go ahead and, turn your flower garden also into an edible garden. Still get the beauty and everything, the color, but also you're able to kind of feed yourself and your family and, kind of substitute out some of the things you would buy from the store and have it here in your yard. So anyway, guys, I want to thank you for joining me today in the garden, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.